I was infected, excuse me, in 1982 when I was 5 years old. We know now that the blood transfusions were known to be infected, but they were being used anyway. My parents weren't told until I was about 7 or 8 years old.
Did they know you'd been infected?
They did. They did. It's shown on my medical records that they knew for quite a while before my parents were informed.
And you were infected
with HIV and hepatitis C, and hepatitis B for that matter, yes.
Right. And they didn't think to tell your parents?
Well, it seems to be a trend across the country that people were not told as soon as they were infected. And there's one good reason for this, a terrible reason, and one terrible consequence as well. The reason is that we know that patients were being monitored for infectivity trials, especially people who'd never been treated before, because they didn't know how the progress of the disease would be transmitted in blood. And we have a letter to say that actually human trials were cheaper than chimpanzees in that case. Right. And the terrible consequence was, of course, that people who were sexually active and in relationships were infecting their partners, and we have several people that were infected during that terrible time.
Gosh, yes. Gosh. How are you now?
I'm recovering. I was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS when I was 16 and missed about 4 years of my life being in hospital and expecting to die until new combination therapies came out. Yes. But slowly I've been recovering since then, and I'm pleased to be able to be here now as part of the contaminated blood group, Tainted Blood. Yes.
What did it mean when David Cameron made that apology? Because a lot of us thought the issue had then been dealt with. Or...
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of us did as well. Obviously, that was David Cameron's last speech in his last PMQs, in which he made those promises. But since then, his apology has been found to be pretty hollow. It's meaningless, really. The other pledges that he made at the time to settle this, both financially and you know, to settle it as far as justice is concerned, have been pushed aside.
Right. So you've been to... What's the legal situation here? Because a lot of people say, well, you know, you take the NHS to court and you get decent compensation. Yes. They've done something pretty awful, and it's...
OK, so in 1990, we took the NHS to court. It was my parents at the time.
Right.
People were dropping like flies, and so they came up with a settlement, an out-of-court settlement, in which we were forced to sign waivers. So it's basically saying that we wouldn't, sue for any further...
and people needed the money urgently because they
did, but nobody knew about hepatitis C at that point.
Right.
And so the government did, but we didn't. And so they made us sign the waivers so that we would not sue them in the future.
You can't go back for more money, which is why you want now...
Yes, it's our only route, a judicial inquiry or, as Andy Burnham puts forward...
Because you've waived away the right to go back to court.
Indeed, yes, yes.
Oh, it's a really interesting case. Andy, thank you so much for coming in. Thanks.